the three pack. And so today I brought in Mindy Thompson to kind of help me with the three pack, because then we're going to go into your segment, which is going to be a lot of the same topic, but different aspects of it. Because at the end of the day, Mindy, there is no way around it. If you want to succeed in this business, you've got to be picking up the phone, making calls, and you got to be going out and having real estate conversations. Business just doesn't magically fall into your lap, but sometimes it does.
Sure.
But not enough to really get to where we want to go. So I want to talk about, first thing I want to say is the numbers don't lie. So when we take a look at internet leads, and whether you're working Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, or whatever the case is, you can expect per 100 leads that you get, they say that you can expect to close 1.6 to 1.7 transactions. So what I have found is if you're bringing on other sources, and if you're picking up the phone, making calls, and having new real estate conversations, every 100 new calls that you make and or 100 real estate conversations, meaning whether you're at open houses, your kid's ball game, you're talking to parents, for every 100 of these conversations, it should result into closings. So do the math. If you want 12 closings in the next 12 months, you've got to find 600 people to talk to. The numbers don't lie. If this number overwhelms you, then may not be the business for you.
It may not. And, the more experienced you get as a real estate agent, the more that number will start to come down.
Mhm.
So brand new real estate agent is going to have to talk to a lot more people to convert into appointments than, for instance, yourself. So if you don't know that unless you're tracking it. So the numbers don't lie, but you got to know where they stand. So you need to be tracking your conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and really, like I said, just at the end of the day, you have got to understand, your real estate license. If you go on to Department of Real Estate and download your real estate license, it says salesperson. Okay, it doesn't say social media expert and Instagram, whatever. It says salesperson. And so I always know, for me, and I always explain to my team, when I my pipeline is always a direct reflection of my phone activity. So if I take a look at my pipeline and I'm looking at my pipeline going, oh boy, my wife's going to be upset, I know I can look back and say, I haven't been working the phones. And then if I look at my pipeline and going, wow, okay, mom was getting a new handbag, right? I can look back and say, my phone activity is where it needs to be. But then if that's where you're at, don't take the foot off the pedal.
Exactly. And that's so hard for so many people as we go feast and famine in this industry. And you can't, when times are good, and I remind my coaching clients all the time, like, things are great, your pipeline looks great, work harder.
All right. So the second thing, did you mess with the screen, Nick?
No.
You're fired, man.
No.
All right. So who to call? And I know you're going to talk about it as well, but this is, when I plan out my week and I take a look at the categories of who I'm going to call, I'm generally picking from, these five. Number one, I'm always focusing on my top ambassadors, and on our team, we call it the Recon 12. Who are the 12 people in your life that should and could be sending you referrals and maintaining those relationships on a monthly basis? And then you go beyond that and you take a look at your entire sphere of influence. Your entire sphere of influence, you should be able to sit down and say, here are 100 people that I would consider in my sphere of influence. The top 12 are my ambassadors. So now I've got 88 other people that I've inputted into my CRM system. I'm setting up alerts and I'm calling and having these real estate conversations. I think sometimes one of the biggest things that falls through, or the biggest group that falls through the cracks, are past clients. You've got to set aside time to say, okay, I got to go back and say who I've closed in the past 12, 24, 36 months, go back and rekindle those relationships if you're not staying on top of them. And then, your database, just going through your database on a regular basis. And then sometimes I'll just scroll down my phone and just go and just start going and go, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to that person in a while. I should pick up the phone and call them. I haven't talked to this person in a while, or sometimes I'm even on, and I don't have it on here, on Facebook. I always try to have a piece of paper and a pen around. So sometimes I'm driving, and I shouldn't be driving and writing at the same time, but I sometimes do. But I'll be driving down the road, and go, oh my gosh, I got to call Nick. I haven't talked to Nick in a while, and I write that name down. Or when I'm on social media and someone engages in one of my posts, I'm like, man, I haven't talked to that person in a while. And that's, because I have a couple high school buddies that in the past we've talked about investing in real estate. They popped up on my social media feed, got on the phone with him. I'm going out to California next month. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about investing in Arizona.
Good. That's such a good idea. And I don't want to talk over anyone right now. So your SOI.
We'll let Nick do that.
Your SOI is your sphere of influence. What does that mean? Everybody you know. Every single person you know falls in your sphere of influence. And so your family, your friends, your past clients, everyone goes in there. And to Mike's point earlier, your past clients, you already have a business relationship with them. Okay, so yeah, maybe you don't want to call maybe your high school buddy, maybe that's uncomfortable for you. How do I bring in real estate? How do I not make this sound manufactured? Things like that. Well, your past clients, you've already done business with them. And here's the deal that I also want everyone to remember is even if it wasn't the smoothest transaction in the world, even if there was some rocky finishing at the closing table, whatever the case, they forget. And so let some time go by, let the dust settle. When you call them, it's going to be like they almost didn't even remember in most cases. And if they tell you where to go, good. Now you have one less person on your list to call.
It's funny that you say that. I've got this lady, when we closed, she just wasn't happy with us. And she let me know that. But, I have my follow-up system, so I stayed with it. And now, fast forward 9 months later, she sent me 2 referrals. Both of these referrals are family members.
Love that.
So when we started this conversation, I was like 80% listening. So I was testing something on the system. So I apologize if you already went over this. Can you explain, if you haven't already, what is a top ambassador?
Yeah. Yeah, we did explain that. But
Okay.
those are your most people, like if you're part of Marge Lindsay's Pro Start, she'll talk about your top 10 people. For us, it's our Recon 12, the top 12 people in our life that could and should be sending you referrals, and put together a system on how you identify them, how you follow up with them. For me and my top ambassadors, it's a monthly. I'm following up and I'm touching them every single month.
So I asked that again because what I get a lot, especially when we have the shift in the market, is agents start calling, asking for their past clients. I need all the information on my past clients. I didn't keep any of that information, which shame on you. But what my conversation with them is, of those past clients, if you've got 3 years, who would be considered one of your top ambassadors? I 100% agree you should try to pull that database, but in my opinion, you should be putting more time, energy into those individuals who are most likely going to refer you business now, as opposed to someone you did business with 3 years ago.
Granted, but when you go back to my first point, and I say, if you want to make 12 closings this next 12 months, you got to have 600 people to talk to. So it's top ambassadors, it's sphere of influence, it's past clients, it's database, it's your lead sources, it's your open houses. And going back to, if you don't have that information about your past clients, and you're obviously not either you don't have a CRM system, or if you have one, if you're not using it, because I can go back on every single one of my clients, pull them up in my CRM and so forth. And sometimes I'll have to open up Transaction Desk and, and remind myself of price points and things like that. So then, and I know you've got this in your point, but what to say? Okay, so you're going to call your sphere of influence. You're going to call your high school buddies, whatever the case is. Here's what I have found. No one, and I mean nobody, wants to talk to a realtor. We're all one and the same, but everyone wants to talk real estate. I am having more real estate conversations on a daily basis than I ever had, because everybody wants to know what the heck is going on in the market, but nobody really wants to be sold. So it's becoming that resource of, I'm someone that you can come and we can have a talk about real estate, but I'm not necessarily trying to sell you, because that will eventually come. But everybody wants to, you got to know what's on everybody's minds. Are we hitting a recession? If we do, how does that impact the real estate market? What's going on with interest rates? Is there going to be a market crash? I'm getting a lot of did I miss the boat of so forth. So you got to know how to respond. You got to know how to overcome these objections. You've got to know the numbers. So congratulations to everybody who's on here listening to Matt's numbers and Todd's numbers. You've got to know the numbers. I had an agent that got into a conversation with a client, and they were talking about interest rates, and the client didn't know that rates dropped, and the client did. Well, that's hard to overcome, and so, and something, one of the things that I just say when I call somebody said, hey, after the chit chat, I know a lot of people that have questions about what's going on in the market. There's a lot of confusion. What questions can I answer for you? And and then you'll find their pressure point. You'll find their pain points.
Absolutely. You and I were talking about this last week. I don't think it's ever been easier to talk to our sphere of influence than it is right now, just with all the media sensationalizing kind of what Matt was just talking about, all the headlines we're seeing. Everyone's got questions. Everyone's wondering. But you said it. You have to know the numbers. You have to, and right now you've got to be watching the market by the week. There are some marketplaces where we don't really need to watch it that closely right now. You've got to be watching it by the week. You don't want to get caught with your pants down if you're having a real estate conversation and someone asks you these questions.
And you've also got to know how to interpret the numbers.
Yes.
So when you take a look at Todd's numbers right now, how I'm interpreting that is, I got to pick up the phone, talk to everybody who's thinking about, or I've talked to about buying a home, because there's been no better time in the last 3 to 4 years to buy a home than right now.
I would just say that I don't think, I'm 37, so I guess you got a couple more years on me than Mikey. But I don't think we've ever had a situation where we're as suspect as mainstream media as we ever have been. It used to be we'd listen to the news and that was what was going on in the world. Now everybody questions what they hear in mainstream media. Be the source of the information to your sphere of influence. Going on social media, sharing the information off the webinar, which we talk about all the time, but just be that extra voice talking about what is actually happening in the real estate market, and people will listen to you.
All right.